Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Workshop Wednesday. Today, we're going to be talking about how to find the golden article. Now, golden article, that's kind of a term that I've made up. My name is Sarah Norrell. I am the business librarian here. So I use this term often whenever I'm working with students and they come to me. Maybe they have requirements for an assignment and they say, I need a total of 10 articles or 10 resources, and I've only found one. I've only found this one resource or this one article that truly fits my topic, but I need 9 more exactly like it. The truth is that's not really possible. However, what we can do is use a few tricks, a few searching techniques, really utilize these searches, search engines, databases, really use them to our advantage and find exactly what we need whenever we're looking for a particular number of resources or a very specific topic. So that's what we're going to be going over today. First and foremost, I have started us on the library's homepage, as you can probably see. So I am going to scroll down just a little bit, okay? And here we are at Swoop Search. Now, for those of you who don't know, Swoop Search is our largest search. It searches all of our library owned materials. So think books, newspapers, some videos. We've got a little bit of everything, okay? But Swoop Search also searches our databases. So those are usually subject specific. Those are more targeted in scope. So when you think about that, Swoop Search is searching billions of different results all at the same time. That's good for many things and many reasons. You do a very broad sweeping search from the very start. Now, I will certainly spend some time when I kick off a research topic in Swoop Search. However, I never recommend that anybody spend all of their time in Swoop Search, because you could end up potentially wasting quite a bit of time trying to filter out those resources that aren't necessarily on topic for you, okay? So first and foremost, anytime I deal with any sort of search engine or a database or anything, I'm always going to use advanced search if that's a possibility, okay? So here we go. So we go into advanced search here, okay? Now, what you'll notice is that we actually have multiple search boxes here, okay? We also have some different drop-down menus. We've got some filters over here on the left. The right. We can add as many search boxes as we see fit, okay? So all of this combined is really going to give us more control over our search, which will hopefully save us time, okay? So just as an example for today's workshop, what I'm going to be searching for is women in leadership, but more specifically, women from minority groups in leadership roles, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with leadership here, okay? And then I'm going to say, I don't know, women of color. We'll start there. One thing to keep in mind whenever you're doing your search is that there's never going to be just one particular word or phrase that exactly fits your topic, okay? It's best to do a little trial and error. It's best to do a little searching and saving, see what's out there with different terminology that, is either synonymous or very similar to your topic. So here I go, I'm gonna do this search, okay? So we have almost 15,000 search results here in Swoop Search. That's less than I expected, but that's still quite a bit, okay? So if we go and let's say I'm looking specifically for peer-reviewed journal articles, okay? So I can automatically cut that down by about half just by, using that filter, which is great. However, I don't want to sit around and filter through 7,000 different results, and I don't expect anybody to do that either. One of the things that I'm going to do, let's say that this first article really catches my attention, the title does. So I'm going to click on that title, and the overlay page comes on. We're looking at, we're looking at the different details. We've got the title, the authors, This is the database that it's coming from. The American Psychologist is the name of the journal that it's published in. It was published in 2010, volume 65, issue 3, page range 171 to 181. So just with all that information right there, I could easily create my citation. However, this doesn't help me very much whenever I'm trying to find similar articles. What we want to do is actually scroll down a little bit, and we see a lot of those details repeated. So we have the title here, we have the authors, then we have this whole category called subjects, okay? So we see a load of subjects listed here, but 2 of them are highlighted, and that is leadership and that is women, okay? And of course, those are highlighted. That is directly related to the search that we just did. So looking at this list of subjects, I start to think to myself, do any of these really fit my topic other than the 2 that are highlighted? Okay, I'm not really seeing a lot that catches my attention. However, this is a good time to point out that any of these subjects that are listed are actually links to new searches. Okay, so the reason that it works this way, if you think back to when we did our search, okay, we just did leadership and women of color, and we used those in the broadest sense possible. We did not designate that we wanted those terms listed in the title of the results that come up or listed as subjects of the results that come up. We just said we want these terms in our results, okay? So that's a very big search. Now, subject terms, or they're sometimes listed as keywords, these are, you can consider the metadata for the resources that we're looking at. So when we talk about metadata, it's really just descriptive data or descriptive terms or information. So if we're looking at the subjects that are listed for this resource, then we know that all of these are pretty large focal points of this resource, okay? So again, I'm going to go in and I am going to just click on leadership, and it's going to refresh that search because we've selected the subject as leadership. So you'll notice it refreshes the search back to advanced search and swoop search, but a few things have changed, okay? We have leadership listed just like I typed it out before. However, this drop-down menu has actually been changed specifically to subject, and it lists is exact leadership, okay? Previously, when we did the search, it looked like this. Any field contains leadership, and that is much more broad, okay? So leadership is a big subject anyway. So I'm going to actually change any field in our second search box is exact, and I'm going to say women, just like we had just seen in the subjects of that resource we were looking at. So again, we have over 15,000 results. That's a lot. If I look at peer-reviewed journals, that cuts us down substantially to less than 5,000, which is great. So the next thing that we would kind of want to look at are, what is coming up in this search? Is it relevant? Are we on the right track? I'm seeing a lot about women in leadership, but I'm not necessarily seeing much about women of color or women in minority groups in leadership positions and things like that. So I'm going to add another line, and I'm going to add minority as another search term. And again, I'm using this very broadly just to see if it helps limit down. Okay, so automatically that lists just a little bit over 3,000 different results. Okay, so we're already more on track than we were before. And then if I wanted to look specifically at those peer-reviewed journal articles, which is so important when we're doing research assignments. So, here we go. This very first one, above the glass ceiling, when are women and racial or ethnic minorities promoted to CEO? Okay. Internally, I'm thinking, yes, that's perfect. This absolutely matches my topic. Okay. So I'm going to click on this title again, kind of just going to go through that same process. We have all of our details here. We can go down, we can look at those subjects, okay? So now we're seeing subjects that are listed that are a bit more on topic. Clearly, we still have leadership, but then we also look down and we have women, women executives, and working women, okay? So if I wanted to look specifically at women executives, let's say that actually is the topic that I've decided upon, okay? So now we have subject is exact, women executives. We can always add another search term. We can come in and look specifically at those peer-reviewed journal articles like we've been doing. That's just over 1,000 results. That is so refreshing to see compared to those original, 15,000, 40,000, however many thousands that we had. This is certainly a bit more usable. And it's not so intimidating, right, to see several thousands of results come up. Now, let's say that I'm starting to see, resources on my topic, but they're not necessarily in the right discipline, okay? So for instance, we have this second article is about women in medicine. This third article is about women in tech. Those are great, and they might be relevant sources, things that I want to use in the future. But let's say right now, I'm just looking at women executives more in the business fields, okay? This might be a great opportunity for me to move from swoop search to an actual subject-specific database, okay? And those databases are the ones that the library subscribes to. So I can always take this search that I've done or these searches that I've done and replicate them in whatever database I decide to go into, okay? So I'm going to click back to the library's homepage, and just underneath advanced search, we have databases by title. That's what I'm going to click on, okay? Now, for anyone who is unfamiliar with our databases by title, this is simply a list, an alphabetical list of all of the databases that we subscribe to, okay? It can be very intimidating, it's overwhelming, 252 databases, that's a lot of names to choose from. We don't expect anybody to know exactly what database they want to look at. What you can do is you can click on this drop-down menu that says all subjects, and then you can go down and you can choose the subject area that is most relevant to either your major, your class, or your assignment. So like we've been doing for this example, I am going to do business, okay? Your librarian will be right there on the side of the list. You can see I'm the librarian for business, so that's my contact information. Now, looking at this list, we've gone from 252 databases to 29, which is a lot better. And because I am the librarian, I'm going to go ahead and recommend that we look in Business Source Complete for this example. Just know that, in your own subject area, you can go through any of those databases that are listed in that specific list. So this is the database Business Source Complete. Now, it's a very large database. It encompasses pretty much all areas of business. One thing that I really like about this database, it searches very much like swoop search. So once you get comfortable searching in one swoop search, you will be fairly comfortable moving right over into a subject-specific database. You see here that we're automatically taken to advanced search, which note we're right there. Instead of our basic search, we have advanced search. We have those multiple search boxes here. We've got multiple drop-down menus here and here. We can go down here and apply whatever filters we want right out of the gate. However, because we are looking for such a specific topic, okay, and we're trying to find those golden articles, trying to find that perfectly fitting article, I'm actually going to utilize a tool in Business Source Complete, and it's also in several other databases, called the Thesaurus, okay? So most of us are familiar with the Thesaurus, just as a resource, right? It's usually a book or collection, maybe a digital collection. When you look up a word, rather than a dictionary that gives you definitions, a thesaurus is going to give you synonyms and antonyms, so words that mean the same thing or the opposite thing from the word that you were looking up, okay? So that's exactly how this works here. However, it provides subject terms instead of just similar terms, okay? So we're going to go here. It says browsing business thesaurus, which is exactly what we want to do. Now, I'm going to go in and I'm going to search for women of color, okay? Now, this is a business database, so all of these subject terms should kind of have that more business focus, right? So it shows up in the results. The terms you entered could not be found. The list below is in alphabetical order. So that just means that women of color is not listed as a precise subject term in Business Source Complete. And that's okay, because what it does, much like any search engine, it provides you other results that are similar or that may be relevant to what you're searching for, okay? So let's just kind of scroll through and see what we find. I mean, we're getting some kind of random stuff, but we do have like women-owned business enterprises that catches my eye. If we keep looking down the list, women in the professions, retired women, stockbrokers, supervisors. So a few of these are definitely catching my eye. They're just not quite exactly what I'm looking for. So this women in the professions, this is the one that catches my eye the most. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to click on that. And again, it's a link, so it refreshes that search for us. So if I sit here and I look and we have women in the professions comes right up, okay? And then it also tells us just below that, women in the professions, Hispanic women. If we wanted to look specifically at Hispanic women in the professions, it tells us use this term, Hispanic American women in the professions, okay? Maybe we're not ready to be that specific, but we know that we're on the right track. So I'm going to click on women in the professions. So this gives us what is called the scope note, okay? So basically it's a note or details providing the scope of this term. What exactly is meant by women in the professions within this database, okay? So here, the scope note. Here are entered general works on women in those occupations which require additional, higher, or specialized education treated collectively, including medicine, nursing, social work, and others, so on and so forth, right? So that kind of tells us like, yeah, we are really kind of on the right track. Maybe women in the professions isn't exactly what we're looking for, but we are on the right track, okay? So then it gives us a list of different terms to consider. So we have more broad terms, so that's just professions, right? But then if we want to look at more specific terms, we have women freelancers and women human resource directors, okay? Excuse me. Now, we have related terms, which is female intensive occupations. And it also tells us that women in the professions is used for searches that have to do with professional women, women professional employees, and women professionals, okay? So that's all really good to know. That definitely will help me as I build my search. So let's say that we want to look at women in the professions. What is listed in Business Source Complete that is connected with women in the professions? So what you can do, it's really easy. You click on this little tick box that selects women in the professions as your term. And then you use this up here and you just hit add. And now if you'll notice, when we clicked add, it refreshed this search box up here, which is our search box for the database. And now it says DE, women in the professions. Now don't be alarmed by that DE. That is just the code, if you will, for this database. That means subject term, okay? So now all I have to do is click search. And there we go. We have 617 results that come up about women in the professions. Now, that's pretty targeted. We know that we're in a business database, so these resources are going to focus on business. We know that we're looking at women in the professions specifically as a subject, okay? But women in the professions, women work everywhere in the professions. So what about that leadership aspect that we were talking about? Let's search that. We've added it as another search term. Now we're down to 62 results. That is Perfect. Okay. Now, first thing I always do, scholarly peer-reviewed journals. Let's take a look. Okay. Now, 10 results. 10 results. How great is that compared to those several thousands that we came up with earlier when we started in a swoop search? Now, if we look, we've got factors affecting women's journey to top management positions, definitely catches an eye. Gender diversity challenges at leadership positions, so on and so forth. Leveling the playing field to bolster the boardroom. So these are certainly all going to be more in the business realm, which is exactly what we're looking for. Like we have women at the top, the glass cliff, so on and so forth, right? So if I just click on one of these just to take a look, okay? So we'll see automatically we have those same details that we were looking at previously. We've got all the publication information, we've got the authors, things like that, so we can create those citations when we need to. But then if you also notice, we have subject terms and we have author supplied keywords. They work very, very similarly, okay? And basically they're just here to tell you what this article is about. So we have women in the professions, of course, because that is what we searched. And then we have leadership listed, of course, because that's also what we searched. And then if we start looking, we see other things like teams in the workplace, culture, families, gender, culture of gender, leadership model, women leaders, work-family interface. All of these could be very relevant to the nuances of my topic. Clearly, women in the professions and leadership is the right place to be. Okay. Now, I am going to go back to our search results and just look at a different one, just because. Okay, like number 1. Okay, so here again, we've got those subject terms and we've got those author supplied keywords. Now, just like we did in swoop search, if we find one of these that, man, that just really speaks to me, that just really catches my eye, I can always click on that and refresh and do a brand new search if I wanted to. So now I'm looking at the subject is women in top management. There are only 3 results here, and one of them is not in English. So that's very, very specific. We see that this article right here is the one that we were just looking at, which of course means that it's going to come up in these search results. So using these search terms, using these subject terms, really manipulating those search results to find exactly what you need will be very, very helpful anytime you're trying to find that golden article, right? Or those 10 golden articles, if that's what your assignment calls for. Nobody here expects any student or anybody who's working on a research assignment to just know exactly how to do this innately in your subject area or on your topic or anything like that. I hope that this workshop has been very helpful, at least to get you started in this process. But at the end of the day, I am always going to recommend that you reach out to your librarian. Like I said, I am the business librarian, so I'm here to help with anybody in the business fields. We have librarians for every single subject at UT Tyler. So please don't hesitate to reach out to the library if you find yourself in a situation where you are trying to find that golden article, or maybe you're just having trouble finding anything for your topic. Whatever the case may be, your librarian is here to help you. And we know all kinds of tips and tricks like this that I just went over today. So with that, I am going to pause. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions.
I have a question. Sorry. So how do I get in contact with the other librarians? I'm
not hearing anything. If anybody is speaking, I would just ask maybe drop it into the chat in case there's any sort of like speaker issues here. So I'm not seeing anything come up in the chat. I do want to wait just a few more seconds because I don't want to rush anybody. All right. Okay, we do have a question coming in. No rush. Thanks for letting me know. While you're typing in your question, I am just going to remind everybody that this has been recorded and this will be posted on the library's YouTube channel in case you want to go back, refresh, watch it again, anything like that in case you came in a little late or something. That's always a possibility. So we had a question come in, how do I find the other librarians and know which one to contact? That is a great question. I'm going to share my screen one more time. Thank you for asking that, Taylor. So I am going to go back to the library's homepage here. Excuse me, sorry. So one thing that you can always do, much like anything helpful, there's multiple ways to do it, right? Multiple ways to get to the same answer. One of the probably quickest things that you can do is come over on the library's homepage to this, I guess, navigation column over here. We look under research, which is a drop-down menu, and we see library liaisons, okay? And that is actually just a list of all of the different subject areas. Let me move this little box out of the way. All the different subject areas or majors here at UT Tyler. And then you'll see that the librarian who is associated with that subject area is listed by name, as well as their contact information and their phone number. Excuse me, their email address and their phone number. That's a bit redundant. So Taylor, I'm not sure what your major is or what classes you're taking, but I do hope that that helps. If you want me to answer, a specific question about your field, just let me know. You're very welcome. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, I'm not seeing anything come up in the chat. Nobody's really speaking up, and that's perfectly fine. I just want to make sure and give plenty of time. I really appreciate you all joining today. And like I said, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on social media. We do post updates, new events that are coming up, anytime we add a recording that's out there for use, stuff like that, fun stuff. Thank you all so much for coming. I hope that this has been helpful, and please don't hesitate to reach out to anybody here at the library if you have any questions or concerns in the future. Everybody has a wonderful rest of your day.